when you show up in a space that was not designed with you in mind and you demand better treatment, you demand to be seen, to be heard, you are paving the way for the next person who looks or acts or feels like you do to have an easier time of that.
Yes, we are celebrating Pride today on the Zero to Travel podcast. That's today's guest, Alicia Valenski, who is here to help us celebrate. Alicia is the author of the LGBTQ plus travel guide from Lonely Planet, which contains over 50 travel destinations around the world where the queer community can thrive outside of just Pride parades. Alicia talks about her experience moving from small-town Pennsylvania to the Netherlands while finding freedom and community along the way. You'll also discover practical resources, including apps, emergency contacts, and legal research tools for LGBTQ plus travelers, how safety considerations differ from mainstream travel advice for this community, and an epic list of 7 incredible destinations, of course.
There are several on this list that when I visited, I was like, oh, I can tell this is a place that it's like that TikTok trend where it's like, should I move here? Like I have that experience when I go to these queer friendly travel destinations all the time where I'm like, oh, I fit in. And it's because this is not a place where I have to wonder if I'm welcome. Like these are just places where I arrive and I know, oh, I can be fully myself and not just be like tolerated, but actively appreciated, which is really cool.
So, whether you identify as LGBTQ plus yourself, perhaps you travel with somebody who does, or you simply want to have a better understanding of the LGBTQ plus travel experience, this episode offers some valuable insights. All of that and much more happening right now, so buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. Our guest today, author Alicia Valenski, is a queer, neurodivergent travel writer, paving the way for more inclusive, diverse, accessible travel information and inspiration to be available to the global LGBTQ plus community and beyond. You can find her work at AliciaValenski.com. Of course, we'll link up to that and the LGBTQ plus travel guide, which is new from Lonely Planet, of which she is the author. And we are celebrating Pride here in Norway, where I live. The rainbow flags are flying at all the surrounding schools for the entire month. I didn't know the history of Pride Month, so I asked AI to break it down for me. Here's what it said, quote, Pride Month traces its roots back to the Stonewall Uprising of June 1969, when LGBTQ plus individuals fought back against police raids at the Stonewall Inn in New York City. What many don't know is that it was largely trans women of color like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera who were at the forefront of this historic moment. The first Pride March took place exactly 1 year later, not as a celebration, but as a commemoration of resistance and a demand for equality. One other tidbit for you, the first Pride March wasn't called Pride at all. It was officially the Christopher Street Liberation Day March, and it took place exactly 1 year later as both a commemoration and as a continued protest. And Pride, of course, began as this act of resistance, and if there is one word that I think perhaps acts as the beating heart of Pride, maybe that word's courage. Today, we celebrate the courage of all of the individuals, organizations, and the travelers out there continuing to pave the way, not only for themselves, but also for future generations. And we have one such individual here today. So please enjoy my conversation with Alicia. Stick around on the back end for a quote. Last reminder, zerototravel.com/newsletter. You can sign up for our free newsletter over there and keep in touch off the pod. Please enjoy my chat with Alicia, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for listening.
Salida del vuelo Transaviaco 5136 con destino Ámsterdam. Señores pasajeros, embarquen por puerta número 49.
Alicia Valenski, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. Lovely to see you. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. Two American expats just hanging out, having a chat. Are you in your new home country, would you call it? I don't know how long are you a citizen of the Netherlands now?
So I'm a resident.
Okay.
Like resident, but not citizen. My partner is a German citizen. So living throughout the EU is relatively easy for us. But at the moment, home is the Netherlands, and we live in Haarlem, which is just outside of Amsterdam.
You know, I'm here because they call me a love refugee. My wife is Norwegian. So that's how I ended up here. And there's a lot of us. But there are also, I have a good friend who's American and he's married to a Lithuanian and they live here. And I always find it fascinating when two people from two different countries pick a third party country to live in. Yeah. Out of all of the European countries you could base, why are you choosing the Netherlands?
So I think for us, when we visited, it just was a vibe that made a lot of sense with how we operate. So there's a reputation that the Dutch have for directness. I'm not sure if you've seen this. Dutch directness is essentially they will just say the quiet part out loud to your face. For me, being autistic, that's really helpful instead of just awkward kind of untrue pleasantries. People will just be like, oh no, that is not a good choice for you. You don't look good in that. Or you shouldn't quit your job because you won't get a better one. Things like that, where it sounds rude, but it's actually very helpful. So I don't know, the vibes here just worked better with our lifestyle, I think. We also haven't had to have a car, which is lovely. We just ride our bikes and walk everywhere. It's just a different pace of life compared to our existence on the East Coast in the US. So
definitely. You went to Penn State. I went to Penn State as well.
Oh my gosh, I would say what a small world, but what a giant university. So not exactly.
Well, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so all the chocolate, all the Hershey Kiss street lamps, all that fun stuff. And originally wanted to go to college on the West Coast, but just for my family financially, I'm a first-gen college student. Wasn't going to happen. So Penn State was my home.
Same. It's what's the cheapest, best state school I can get into? Okay.
Yep. Who will give me the most scholarships and everything. But honestly, it turned out to be such an amazing experience for me. I loved going to journalism school at Penn State. The College of Communications there is just unparalleled. So I'm really grateful it worked out the way that it did. I'm
a communications major as well. Look at this.
Oh my God. Success story.
Pennsylvania people hanging out. Yeah, this is funny. I didn't realize we had even that much in common down to the degree. I didn't think I thought I was one of those people that wasn't using my degree until I realized, I guess I am kind of using my degree as a podcaster in a way.
I think you're communicating
back then.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm communicating on some level.
Yeah, honestly impressive. But I think at the time, when I earned my degree, at least, you would have probably been on the broadcast side of that degree if you were looking at journalism. You would have been looking at radio shows or the NPR of it all and things. And it's just evolved. I wonder how they teach that in the courses now.
Yeah, I'd be curious too. It'd be fun to do a Billy Madison type thing and go back and see. What does your family think of your overseas relocation?
What a fun question. They are not stoked about any of it, about me living here or about the book that I've published. So they have contributed to the redness of the state, I would say. So that is not ideal. But yeah, no one has come to visit me here or anything like that from the family so far. And we've been here for almost 3 years.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Not everybody's fortunate to get the family support.
In the queer community, chosen family is such an important thing. And we certainly have found ours here in the Netherlands, but we also have friends who have been over 2 or 3 times at this point to visit us from the States since we've moved. And so we have our people who care and who are present and, cheering us on. So we're really lucky.
I have 2 children myself. I have a very hard time. I try to empathize and understand and connect with humans of all walks of life, I suppose. I always have a hard time relating to the parent who's not just cheerleading their child on no matter what they do or who they are. I'm sorry. That's
no, it's a tough one.
I'm not trying to throw your parents under the bus or anything.
No, totally.
I have a hard time relating to that. And you have the lived experience of that. Do you mind if we get a little personal here. Yeah. Like, how has that been for you? And I guess the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, well, it just came up in the conversation, but also maybe there's some people listening that aren't getting the support from their family, whether, it not necessarily be LGBTQ plus related. It could be their decision to like quit their job and travel. Share your experience, I guess, and some of your wisdom you've gained through it.
Sure. So my situation's a little unique, I think. My parents were teen parents, so none of this was like on purpose, and kind of had that situation growing up where it was like I got compared to Gilmore Girls a lot. My mom and I were like so close in age that it's like we're sharing clothes, we're sharing like, laughs a lot of the time. But I think, every relationship has its challenges. My biological father, I haven't spoken with in probably 5 or 6 years now. He's just not a great person. My stepdad is fantastic. He's a really wonderful parent, but the area that I'm from in Pennsylvania, and maybe you can connect with this, it just is a more conservative Republican kind of area. And so, I think my parents think of themselves as really accepting. My lived experience has been that they have just got this internalized, like, I don't know that they're even aware of it. Homophobia particularly is like, with the trans community. And so I think especially in the Trump era of it all, it's been really challenging to navigate conversations. My family is none of them have left, not even just Pennsylvania, but like the hometown area that I've lived in ever. So me moving abroad was kind of the first thing that they couldn't understand about me. And then I think the fact that, I identify as queer, even though I'm married to a man, that bisexuality doesn't click in their brains. They really can't understand why I choose to be the way that I am, I think. So it's tough. I think they really want to get it, but not enough to like do the work to get it. But like I said, I think for me, a big part of finding myself was uprooting myself from where I grew up and seeing more of the world. When, my parents and I will butt heads on different issues. At one point, I remember my mom saying, you've been other places, that you've seen so many different things. You've had so many different experiences with different types of people. I don't have that. And I had to like pause and be like, it's really cool that you just acknowledged that, but I don't think you know what you just acknowledged, which is you're in this one place and you only have one perspective. And traveling really, I think, opened my eyes to the world can be very different from like this small sliver of a view that you get when you stay in the same place for your entire life. So for me, it's been huge in not just finding myself, but finding my people, finding places where I feel comfortable to completely be myself. It's huge. It's changed my entire life.
Sure. I mean, everybody has the right to be themselves. That's what you want. In all sorts of contexts, I know that can be difficult for people at different ages, different settings. I mean, you mentioned the sort of, I don't want to generalize, but let's say the small town mentality or whatever that means to you. Like, I didn't really grow up traveling. I went on some camping trips and things with my dad, but not like internationally or things where I was exposed to all sorts of. A day trip to New York City when I was 9 was very like mind blowing. That was the thing that made me realize, oh my gosh, there's like a whole world out there. It's New York. But you have to find your own way out of that if you have the desire to travel. I'm just wondering, for you, how did you, I don't know how you felt, but coming out of Penn State, like not really knowing what I wanted to do, just having this dream to travel, having all this college debt, I was like, okay, yeah, like I want to do this, but I don't really know how to do this. Let alone like imagining that could move abroad, for an extended period of time and all this stuff. It just seemed like it's
impossible.
I guess it's the small town mentality. Yeah. It seems like this is like such a pie in the sky thing. A lot of people have that in common. They managed to do it. Like, for you, was it a mindset thing? Was it a practical mindset combination?
A couple of things. So my first, I guess, college break, a friend of mine, one of my best friends growing up, was studying abroad in Ireland. And she basically was like, hey, I think that you should come over here and visit me this winter and like just see a trip. Like, we'll go to Ireland, we'll go to England. This is its own, I could have a whole podcast about my crazy family, but I met my dad's mom and sister for the first time in England because that's where they're based. And I had never met them in my life. So she was going to come with me to that. We did Christmas with them. We saw France. And I remember I bought the tickets with money I had earned at one of my many jobs because I had like 6 jobs at Penn State. And I didn't think about it. I was like, I'm 19 years old. I bought this ticket and my mom was furious. She like didn't speak to me for days because I had decided to book this trip without like speaking to her first. She was so scared for my safety. She was just like, it was anger that was really fear. And I can see that now. But at the time I was like, dude, at my age, you had a 2-year-old. Could you slow your roll? Like, I think it's okay. So I was very
That's way
like,
scarier than a trip to Ireland.
yeah. So that trip was the first time that I was like, oh my God, look how big the world is. And I don't need to be afraid. Like, why is this pitched to me as this thing that I should be really scared of doing? Like solo travel or traveling with other like young girlfriends, essentially. This is amazing. I want to do more of this. So that inspired me to study abroad my junior year at Penn State. I spent a semester living in Sevilla in Spain. I lived with a host mom who spoke literally 0 English. Thankfully, I was a Spanish major, so that was fine. But like, what a transformative experience living somewhere where like even the language is different, let alone everything else cultural around you. And during that time, I got to see so many other places in Europe and was like, I need more of this. This is what I want to do with my life. And at that time, I was dating my now husband. And we were like both studying abroad. He was in Germany. I was in Spain. We were traveling and meeting up in like Portugal and Austria and Switzerland. And it was so cool. And we were like, we need to do this again at some point in our life. We will live abroad. That was always on the bucket list. So I don't want to call it post-pandemic because the pandemic is still ongoing. But post-lockdown, at least, we traveled to Amsterdam for 10 days with like no itinerary, just being like, let's go experience chilling out somewhere that is not the US right now because the US is scary to us right now. And it was just like, oh, we could probably move here. Like we could do this. And it was a lot of paperwork, but again, I'm autistic and my hyper focus became, all right, I'm going to do all this paperwork. I'm going to get everything that we need in order so that we can move here. And people seemed really surprised, skeptical that it was actually going to work out. Like when we started telling people, they were like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. And here we are. And we're not alone. There are so many expats living in different EU countries, let alone the rest of the world. Like it's not as hard as I think people think it is. But it really is interesting coming from the small town where nobody's left even like the county, let alone the state, let alone the country. People don't have passports and then being like, yeah, no, I dipped. I live in Amsterdam now or whatever.
Yeah. Congratulations. Well, that's another thread through this podcast. I think when you hear a story of somebody that a lot of times it just starts small, right? It started with the visiting your friend trip to Ireland, which led to the idea of living, and it just sort of builds momentum. And I think that's a great takeaway to just pull out is the start small towards a big goal, right?
Yeah. And have someone who knows what's going on, who can meet you when you get there. Like my friend was studying there. She knew what was going on. Like I wasn't going in completely blind, but like start with someone who can guide you and be like, you should do this. I think you'll like it. And then just jump and see what happens.
Yeah. And that's fairly easy to do now, even if you don't have a friend on the ground through, social media groups. And there's all kinds of expat groups and travel groups and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of a guide, you wrote one.
I did. And I really want this guide to be like a friend telling you what to do when you visit somewhere so that you'll feel safe and celebrated. That's the entire goal.
Yeah, the LGBTQ plus travel guide, which was also, you have a lot of different contributors that are experts locally on the destinations that are featured, which you featured 50. I'll just read from the guide description, 50 of the world's most queer-friendly destinations. And we're going to hear your top 7 today. Before we dive in, we should get some more context because in the beginning of the guide, you have a section that's LGBTQ plus travel, how it's different and why it matters. And I wanted to hear you elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, of course. So that was probably the question I got the most while I was writing this book was, why do you need a separate LGBTQ travel guide? Why can't you just use a standard travel guide like everybody else? And Ed Salvato, who I interviewed in the introduction, put it really simply, and that's based on our lived experience, we cannot assume that everyone's welcome includes us. So even if, say, I'm on a trip with a partner who is same sex as me and I ask a concierge, oh, is this restaurant that I'd like to make reservations at, is it queer friendly? And they just go, oh, yeah, it's fine. They're thinking, well, I don't mind the LGBTQ community and I go there, ergo it's queer friendly. But that's not digging into, okay, well, if we're sitting there and holding hands, cheersing with champagne, like cuddling at the table, are we going to get weird looks? Are we going to be turned away by the restaurant? Are we like, what could happen to us? Are we safe in that moment? And so much of this book is basically, there are so many assumptions that people who don't identify as part of the LGBTQ community make, even if they're allies, about what is and isn't safe for people within this community. And so I didn't want to speak just from my perspective. I'm only one of the letters in that acronym. I really wanted to speak with people who personally live in these destinations about, hey, where do you feel safe as a person who identifies as a part of this community? And speak to people who have other intersectionalities as well. Like, yes, speak to someone from every letter in that acronym and beyond, but also BIPOC folks. I wanted to speak to trans and non-binary folks, people who are disabled, people who identify in all these different ways, so that this book really can feel, reflective of the diversity within the LGBTQ community, because we're not a monolith. It's not like, hey, come here for the Pride Parade or these nightclubs, or sorry, that's it. It really is supposed to be, hey, we are a varied group of people who have different interests and priorities when we travel. How do we make sure that we can find something for anybody who might identify that way? And that was really what makes this book different, I think, is that personal insider information, but also the variety of options that there really are for us.
Yeah, thanks for breaking that down. It's great because the book, of course, works the other way. This is a book that you said we wanted this to be specific about this topic for those reasons you just laid out. But now anybody listening who's just wanting destination recommendations, that this is going to work for everybody too, of course.
Exactly.
So
yeah, that's mentioned in the book as well. I spoke with a couple, Lexi and Aisha in London. They're on Instagram as the Queer Nomads. Love them. And Aisha was explaining that if you look at safety as kind of a like bottom up adventure, I suppose, like you really want to make sure that the person who at the, bottom of this situation, the person who is the most marginalized, so maybe like a Black trans woman, if we can make a space where that person feels safe and okay to be completely themselves, every other person, any white trans person, any Black person who's not queer, every other community benefits. So if you can start with who is the most marginalized and what do we need to do to support them, make them feel seen, celebrated, every other community benefits. So to your point, yes, these are queer-friendly travel destinations. Also probably makes them great for solo female travelers or for BIPOC travelers. Like all of those considerations essentially make a place safe for more than just one community. It means safety for almost everybody.
Love that. What is your best advice for LGBTQ travelers who are new to traveling? And then we'll dive into this list.
So I think the number one thing that you can do is educate yourself before you travel somewhere. To me, information really is power. And so it's important I have a whole section in the book about LGBTQ travel essentials. So like know your rights, practical safety tips, in case of emergency, who to contact. And it starts with knowing your rights before you even book the trip. So like check out Equaldex or the ILGA world maps and see what is the most up-to-date legislation in this place. Is this somewhere where I could be, fined or jailed or killed for being homosexual? Is this somewhere where I can use the gender markers on my travel documents that align with how I identify? Knowing all of those things before you go or before you book is huge. And then as far as once you're in a place, know that there are numbers that you can contact or websites you can visit for immediate assistance in case of an emergency. So if you experience any sort of harassment, if you are detained, if you are anything, there are these numbers that you can contact globally for assistance. Some are more for kind of like youth oriented, so like college age kids. Some are more for like LGBTQ seniors. Some are specific to trans travelers. And then some just kind of run the gamut. having that information will not just help you feel safer, but help you in a crisis when you're not thinking clearly.
Great advice. All right. You're saying like the legalities of the land,
Yeah.
before you even, yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, where do you want to start? I know these lists are very subjective, of course, but they're fun. I noticed there are a lot of urban destinations in this guide, which makes sense. You want to count down to maybe your number one for today? Of course, that could change tomorrow, but maybe your number one favorite spot or one of or maybe at least one you have experience with that you really enjoyed.
Of course. So I think that there are several on this list that when I visited, I was like, oh, I can tell this is a place that it's like that TikTok trend where it's like, should I move here? Like I have that experience when I go to these queer friendly travel destinations all the time where I'm like, oh, I fit in. And it's because this is not a place where I have to wonder if I'm welcome. Like these are just places where I arrive and I know, oh, I can be fully myself and not just be like tolerated, but actively appreciated, which is really cool. So I would say I'm going to give you the ones that I've been to that are on my top 7 list, I think. And then I might tell you some that I have on
Your
my
wish
to
list.
visit list. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and I think, the context is great before we go, because the idea of like the should I live here test is always like every traveler has those fantasies, right? If it's even coming up, that's probably a good sign you're resonating with the place. So I love that as context. All right, kick it off for us, Alicia.
Okay, so if I'm going to kick off with number 7, and this might be controversial, so everyone forgive me. My number 7 would probably be Brooklyn in New York. Seems low on the list. I know. I'm sure people are going to question that immediately. Here's my context. When I lived in Brooklyn, I did not personally have the best time. I was very, 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 very poor at the time, and I couldn't afford to do like a lot of the things that I wanted to be able to do when exploring there. So I think it's number 7 on my list out of the ones that I've been to, because I still have a very soft spot for it. As somebody who did live there, I had some bad experiences, but I'd like to rewrite that story a little bit. So I'd like to go back and have a different experience, particularly with the guidance of the couple that I interviewed for the book, because their recommendations in Bed-Stuy seemed like a way better option than where I was when I was living near Brooklyn College. So that seems like a better option.
I see. So yeah, you're acknowledging Brooklyn as a great destination in and of its own right, but your personal experience there wasn't so hot. Is there some specific experience you want to share that stood out to you from the guide that
Absolutely.
you can have in Brooklyn?
Yes. So I was speaking with a couple there, Jania and Lenny, and they were giving me great recommendations for different shops that I could go to. One that stood out to me was Café con Libros, which is obviously coffee with books. That is a place that I would love to visit when I'm in Brooklyn. I'm actually going to be there soon for a book signing, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, that's one that I'm looking forward to. And there are a bunch of other shops and restaurants throughout Bed-Stuy, which is their neighborhood, that I'd be really, really excited to check out.
Coffee with books. Do you need anything else?
No, I don't personally. That sounds great.
I don't need anything else. I mean, water and some food would be nice.
Eventually.
Too. Maybe some friends.
Yeah. If there's somebody around.
But just for, a way to spend a day, coffee and books.
Right. And then Marsha P. Johnson State Park is right there. Maybe you pop into the Brooklyn Museum. Like that sounds like a really great day to me. And it also, funny to me, sounds like not that queer, but like, what is it supposed to be? Am I supposed to like go stand on a pride float when I'm traveling in between? No, I'm a queer person who just exists in the world. Sometimes I just have a day that is like, I will be safe, but it doesn't need to be like, and it's rainbow colored.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Great. It's a great start. I'm pumped to hear the rest.
Okay, perfect. For me, number 6, I would say, again, I'm going to preemptively apologize for putting this lower on the list because I know people love it, but London. And I think what we're learning together here is that big cities are not always my vibe. And that's perfectly fine. Some people want a city that never sleeps. I am a very sleepy girl. I would like a very chill, little tiny cute city. And
a
so
city
for
that
me,
always sleeps.
Yes, honestly, that'd be better. I want like a quieter, like more chill city. But when I want something exciting, I mean, New York and London, of course, are going to be on that list. So I think that there's so much cool stuff to see specifically in East London. Again, the couple that I interviewed while I was writing the book, Aisha and Lexi, they had a lot of great recommendations specifically on that side. The Common Press would be, again, top of my list. That is a bookshop slash cafe that also has like wine and events and things. Are you seeing a trend? I really like books. Weird as an author, right? That would be my recommendation. And then there's just so many cool clubs on that side of the city too, but clubs that have things like poetry readings or like drag nights or things like that. So you're not just going to dance to a DJ, you're going and experiencing something cultural, which I really love.
Since you're a fellow bookworm, remind me, in case I forget after this list, that we need to get some of your favorite book recommendations.
Absolutely. I have so many. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. So I would put London there for sure. I think after that, for me, I'm looking specifically at the destinations that we did like a full profile on, not looking at like the hit list that comes after of like beaches, spas, etc. But looking at the main list, I would probably put Portland, Oregon next. Portland as a city, I'm not sure if you ever visited when you were in the States, but oh my God, it's one of those cities you look at it and you're like, oh, this is definitely gay friendly. Like you get off the plane and you're like, ooh, it's going to be a fun time here. Yeah, it's a lovely one.
Very accepting.
For sure. And the person I interviewed there, Charlie Sprinkman, actually started an app called Everywhere is Queer. And there are like tens of thousands of queer-owned businesses identified on this app. It's like constantly updated. And he is based in Portland, but the app you can use anywhere. Like there are places in Amsterdam that are identified on this map with this app. So there's so many cool places that you can find just by like popping open this app and searching wherever you are.
Okay.
Yeah, highly recommend.
That's a great resource to be aware of.
For sure.
Everywhere is Queer. Is that the name of the app?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And Charlie's honestly like such a sweet baby angel, but yeah, highly recommend. And the recommendation I had from Charlie that I didn't visit when I was in Portland, but now it's high on my list was Little America, which is a bunch of different food truck pods that you can visit. And so all kinds of different types of food that you can just like really easily grab and walk around the city. It just is like such a chill way to experience all the tasty food of Portland all in one place. Portland is a really great place for like shopping and food.
Amazing.
Yeah. My next on this list would probably be Madrid. So hopping over now to Spain, which is obviously having studied in Spain, I loved it there. I love the neighborhood of Chueca in Madrid. Specifically, that is like the queer friendly neighborhood. Like the metro station there is rainbow colored and everything. It's a very celebratory place. And if I were to recommend anything specific there, Etoile Cafe is one of my favorites. Some delicious brunch items. I had like cacio and pepe scrambled eggs, and it was so incredibly good. And if you are a person who wants to like go out and club, which I did admittedly do one night while I was there most recently, a couple of months ago, Rick's is kind of the place that is like the it place right now for people in like 30s, 40s age range.
Okay, cool. Is that an activity like that? Can that be challenging for you with
Yes.
the autism? And,
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to do it, I have to like really be ready to do it. So as a neurodivergent person, we talk a lot about having spoons available for activities. So you like start the day with a full spoon drawer, and everything that you do takes like a certain number of spoons. So for me, like showering is a spoon, putting myself together and like getting dressed and going out in the world is a spoon. Something like going to a club is probably like 5 spoons. That's going to be like, I'm going to nap all day in preparation for doing this. Thankfully, Spain is a place where like, they're like, hey, yeah, siesta, let's go. Like, go ahead and take your disco nap and then we'll see you afterwards. But I always have like accommodations in my bag too. So I've got like earplugs. I've typically got sunglasses if things are too bright. I just walk around with like an army of accommodations in my bag.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, Madrid would be on that list for sure for me, I think. I think the next one, and it's getting more challenging as we get toward the top of the list. Remind me how many I've left. 3?
You have 3 left. Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay, next would be Vancouver in Canada. I absolutely love the friendliness of that place. I love every person that you meet just wants you to feel welcome. It's so hospitable. I also love all the outdoor activities there. Like Vancouver's a wild place. You can take to the water, to the mountains, to the beaches. Like there's so much that you can do. I remember riding bikes along the seafront at Stanley Park, which was so gorgeous. I remember going to, I want to say it's Capilano suspension bridge, which is like this crazy treetop adventure that you can cross through. So that was a more like outdoorsy, naturey vibe for me. And I loved that. It was such a cool place to visit for that reason. But they also, I think we visited like peak craft beer boom. I don't know if all the places are still there, but I remember going to amazing breweries while we were in Vancouver and Portland.
Yeah.
But
there is something special about, and I live in one of them in Oslo, the cities that have close proximity to nature, where one minute you can be doing some crazy city cultural experience that you could only get in a bigger city, and then later in the afternoon, say you're on a hike next to a lake or something,
yeah,
or
for
kayaking
sure,
or whatever. It's a wonderful juxtaposition as a local and also as a traveler to experience.
It means you never get bored, I think. Like there's just so much to see. You're never going to have the same exact experience going out on a hike or a bike ride in any of these places. There's so many urban beaches, but then there's also, if you go a little bit further out, some more secluded ones. It's just a really beautiful thing. And they have one of the, I mean, not that this book is about pride celebrations, but they do have one of the biggest pride celebrations, if memory serves, in like all of Western Canada.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Super cool one. Okay, we're down to my final 2. So I am having a hard time because I've lived in both of these places and loved them both so much. So I'm going to put Richmond, Virginia at number 2. That was where we moved.
I was going to bring up Richmond as a surprise on the list for me. Now, I didn't even know it would be on this list, but I saw it in the book and I was like, Richmond, Virginia? Okay.
Yeah.
My dad and my stepmom moved down to Fredericksburg, and I don't know how far that is actually off the top of my head, but
like an hour.
When I was going through the book, it wasn't the destination that I was like, Virginia will definitely be in this book, No offense to Virginia. It's just that, the world's big. I didn't expect to see Richmond, Virginia there.
So I think part of what made this book interesting and probably a little scary for the Lonely Planet team was that I did not give them a list of destinations when I was like putting it together. I gave them a list of people that I wanted to speak with who lived in different destinations. So until I secured like all the interviews with the people that I spoke with for each destination, we didn't know exactly which destinations would be included. So it was a very people first, community driven project. And Richmond ended up on there in part because I lived in Richmond and I know how queer friendly it can be. That was the place that we moved from when we moved to Amsterdam. We were living in Richmond, Virginia. But also because, the person I interviewed, Paige, I just thought she had a really important story to tell. And so that's another interesting facet of this book is everyone's, recommendations are in there, of course, for where they think you should eat and drink and what you should see and do. But it also tells a little bit of their story and how they got to where they are and how they ended up in the city that they live in. And Paige's story is a really great one, I think, for especially what we like to refer to as baby gays of like, hey, if you're still finding yourself at this point in your life, that's okay. And it can work out really beautifully for you if you trust yourself and believe in yourself and put yourself in the right places. So I loved her story. And Richmond, that's just like, such a rad city. The Scots Addition neighborhood has something like 30 breweries, wineries, and distilleries in it within like a square mile radius that you can walk to. It's bananas. There's, Godfrey's Drag Brunch is just like a cultural institution there. There's so many really cool things to do. And it's another one of those cities that's got tons to do, like on the James River. You can go, I remember doing like a paddleboarding yoga class, or you can do an urban hike on Belle Isle. There's so much to see and explore, whether you want to be in the city or in nature. It's all just kind of right there for you.
Yeah, that's Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
really
now I'm
rad.
like, yeah, next time I'm visiting my dad and my stepmom, I got to make my way over to Richmond, Virginia, and check it out for
That's probably
myself.
one of our
Sounds
most
epic.
jam-packed chapters of like the recommendations themselves. There's so many in that one.
Love it.
Yeah,
Okay, do we get a drum roll for your number one? I don't know.
I guess
Here
so.
we go.
I have to say Amsterdam. How can I not say Amsterdam? I mean,
I
I
had a
moved here for a
sneaking
reason.
suspicion.
Honestly, Amsterdam is, I think the Netherlands was like the fourth country to legalize same-sex marriage. And Amsterdam has, long had this reputation for being a very open place to explore your sexuality, whatever that means to you, whether you're, straight or queer or anything in between. And so it is a place where no one really cares what you're up to or what you're doing. No one's going to look at you funny. You can dress and be with and act kind of however you want, so long as you aren't like being rude to anyone else, then no one's here to yuck your yum in any capacity. So there's a street that I truly cannot pronounce in Dutch, but I'll try. De Reguliere Straat. And that is like the queer street in downtown, center Amsterdam. But there are so many other areas of the city to explore. Barbario is a really safe space for queer community and specifically BIPOC queer community in Amsterdam. The Vondelpark is a very classic place to spend your day, just sort of wandering around through the flowers and chilling in the grass with like a picnic. There's just so much to do. And I think people maybe forget that Amsterdam is very close to the beach. Zandvoort is the closest beach, I would say, to Amsterdam. It's like maybe 20 to 30 minutes to get to it. And you're right on the water. You're on the North Sea. It's really beautiful.
And those stroopwafelen, is that what they're called?
Stroopwafel, they're so good.
Oh.
Incredible. The smell of them when you go get them fresh.
Yeah, and
incredible.
Just the sort of chewy thing, but yeah. Anyway, if you haven't had a stroopwafel before, you don't need to go to the Netherlands to get one. You can probably find one somewhere near where you live. But
yeah, there's plenty of good Dutch foods worth trying.
Yes.
People are really on the fence about the herring thing. I don't know. I don't mind it. The pickled herring, why not? Delicious.
Well, it's interesting that that's your number one, because this is one of the cities that's sort of got the anti-tourism campaigns going, trying to keep people away. What do you think about all that?
So it's interesting. This may not be my place to say, but I suspect, and the articles that I've seen seem to support the idea that a lot of the tourists that we don't really want in Amsterdam are, what here they would refer to as a stag party or a hen party. So like bachelorette parties, people who have every expectation of like, oh, we're going to go to Amsterdam and smoke so much weed and eat space cakes and then go to the red light district and, do like be kind of vaguely drunk and shitty to a sex worker. And like, that is not what we're looking for here. There are rules of decorum. And like I said earlier, the Dutch directness means if you're doing something that makes you a nuisance, people will directly tell you as much. If your phone is out and you're trying to take pictures in the red light district, which is illegal, they probably won't ask you nicely to put it away because there are signs everywhere that tell you shouldn't have it out. They will just take it from you and throw your phone in the canals or something. Like, this is a lot more of, I think, what people in Amsterdam seem to want to have less of, is like people who are coming here with this idea that it's kind of like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's not what we're going for. So at least from what I've seen, the queer travelers are really embraced. There are a lot of resources available to let queer folks who visit Amsterdam know where they can visit, where they can feel safe, where to go if they need any help with anything. The Pink Point is kind of like an informational resource in the Jordaan area. There's the Homo Monument over there, which is just like a really powerful image. There's a camaraderie here with the queer community. I feel like in Amsterdam, even if you're visiting, people want to point you in the right direction. People know where the safe spaces are. People want you to feel good and have a nice time. But if you show up and you're like toxic masculinity, bro, you probably aren't going to get the warmest welcome.
I see. Yeah, those campaigns have even specific, I'm not sure if it was that city or another one, I can't remember, but some of those have been specifically targeting exactly like young British backpackers, for
Yeah.
example. It's just like, not to throw them under the bus. You guys are listening. Love you guys. I'm not putting you in that category. I'm just saying, I hear what you're saying. There's the sort of hey, we're going to like just get messed up and like run through this town like it's our giant personal playground. And that's
Exactly. If you find yourself peeing into a canal late at night while shouting like, "Hey, bruv," then like you've gone too far. You took a wrong turn somewhere. Something bad has happened. Like that would be my number one takeaway. If you look around and everyone's giving you a dirty look, maybe you need to take a step back.
There you go. Then you need to reel it in. Get control of yourself. Stop peeing in that canal. All right. What a great list. Thank you for sharing. The resources, you mentioned the app. Any other resources? You got the hotlines you mentioned and different things like that for the research, the pre-trip research. Any other really great resources you want to share here? Of course, the book. Mention the book. Where can people go and get it, and where do you want people to go to check out?
Available where all good books are sold is the line that I think I'm supposed to say. It's available on the Lonely Planet site. You can find it on bookshop.org at like your local bookshop near you. It'll ship from there. As far as other resources, I would say rights for trans travelers. You can look at that at transequality.org. The ILGA world maps are really useful. They can give you a lot of different layers of information. So like sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, how those elements are kind of addressed locally. So not just like the legality, but like what is public perception? Would you experience like social issues if you arrive and you're a certain way? And then, of course, Equaldex is where you can go to find the legality of it all. So you can see, an up-to-date timeline of LGBTQ rights in each country that you might consider visiting, and even drill down like state, province, region, legality of not just same-sex marriage, but of being homosexual, full stop. So would definitely recommend those. And then, Everywhere is Queer is a great resource that is really just like helping you get out and see the world and support queer-owned businesses. If you're in UK or EU, Moonlight Experiences is a resource that you can get matched with a local person who will be kind of like your on-the-ground tour guide when you arrive somewhere, if you're traveling solo or you just want somebody who's like a part of the community to guide you. And Quouch, Quouch, is a queer couch surfing app. So if you're looking for queer-friendly accommodations and you're on a budget, that's a really excellent one to have in your back pocket as well.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all that. The example of supporting queer-owned businesses or some of the resources you shared. Before I ask you for some book recommendations, and then we'll let you go, I wanted to ask you a bit about the article you wrote for Attitude Magazine. Travel isn't just about seeing the world, it's about changing it. And in part of that article, you said, when we travel as queer, neurodivergent, or marginalized individuals, we're not just escaping our daily routines, we're carving out space in a world that often forgets we exist. Every trip we take is a quiet protest against the norms that attempt to exclude us, a chance to demand more from the places we visit. Can you talk a little bit about that and the spirit behind the article? And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of share your perspective around this.
Yeah, of course. So I really just feel like when you show up in a space that was not designed with you in mind and you demand better treatment, you demand to be seen, to be heard, you are paving the way for the next person who looks or acts or feels like you do, to have an easier time of that. So for me as an autistic person, when I wear my sunflower lanyard that indicates that I have a hidden disability in an airport, and I ask, would it be okay if I board early? I really struggle with like a lot of noise and being like crowded with people moving all around me. And the person says, we don't usually do that, but yeah, sure, fine. Then the next time somebody asks, they might have an easier time getting that yes, and they might need even more than I do. They might have even more of a struggle, but not feel like they would get the support that they need if they asked for it. So I really have very long believed in being loud about what you care about and knowing your worth. And so going back to the beginning of our conversation, I grew up in a place where being queer and being neurodivergent, and for a large part of my life, like denying those parts of myself and like not really feeling confident enough to express them out loud, it made life so much harder for me. It, made me just constantly in a state of duress. And if I can help anyone avoid that feeling for themselves, that's what I want to do, whether I'm traveling or in the place that I actually live full time. So for me, I think traveling as visibly queerly as I can is my effort to let anybody else who is queer and near me know that I'm a safe person to speak with and that I might be able to help them if they run into crisis. And wearing my lanyard does the same thing, I hope, for the neurodivergent community or anyone with a hidden disability to know, like, ooh, look, there's someone who gets this. And if I need help, that's a safe person to go to. So I think on one side, it's like making yourself accountable. You want to be there for other travelers who may be in need. But on the other, it's just normalizing that your experience, while it may not be neurotypical or heteronormative, is still a valid experience, and you deserve the same level of care as any other passenger on the plane or any other guest at the hotel or what have you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. The lanyard, I didn't know about that. Are there any other things the general public should know about that when they see it, they're like, oh, okay, I know what that means now?
Yeah, I think the lanyard is the biggest one that I'm aware of, and that is recognized internationally in airports, as far as I know. There are certain airports that also now have dedicated quiet spaces, so specifically for people who might get overwhelmed and might need to find a space for quiet, just like because they're neurodivergent or for any other reason. Maybe you need a prayer space, maybe you need something else. As far as visually what to look for, I personally am always traveling with something rainbow on my exterior, but that's just the way that I choose to present myself in the world. I don't think it's every queer person's responsibility to make themselves visibly queer if they don't feel safe doing so. But those are things that I recommend looking out for. And I think the way that you choose to show up in the world can tell other people a lot about you and can tell them if they can feel safe with you or not. And so for me, I see that as a responsibility I have, especially as the author of a book like this. But if somebody else doesn't want to be like visibly wearing rainbows or even put on a lanyard like that, they don't have to. Just know that there are resources available to you if you decide that it's something that you do want to do.
Great. Book recommendations. What do you got for us?
I have so many. This is going to sound terrible. I don't think I have any other travel book recommendations at the moment.
That's not terrible. That's okay. We all have lives outside of travel books,
Yeah, right. I just absolutely have loved reading anything by Emily Austen recently. So she wrote these titles are a little bit morbid. Everyone in this room will someday be dead. And more recently, We Could All Be Rats. So those ones are both really powerful, poignant, neurodivergent inclusive and queer inclusive as well. So I loved both of those. I loved Haley Jacobson's book, Old Enough. That one's kind of more coming of age-y. And this is a little bit older of a recommendation, I would say at this point, but Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin is a favorite for me for sure.
Beautiful. And we should mention and add to the list the LGBTQ plus travel guide.
Yes, of course.
Which, of course, you can get where they sell books. And, we're going to link up to your website, too. So just so people can find you over there, aliciavalenski.com, and we'll link up to that. And do you want to leave us with any words of wisdom, a favorite quote, perhaps, anything?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I think if I were to leave anybody with a word of wisdom, it would just be, there are more places that you could feel like you in the world than you may realize. And if you don't travel, it's really hard to find them. So I just encourage everyone to explore as often and as widely as they're able to so that they can find their chosen families in destinations around the world.
Beautiful. So eloquent. Thank you so much. I love that. That's a great way to sign off. Congrats on this monumental feat of publishing a guide, which is no small thing. It's a lot of work.
A lot of work, yeah.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and years probably. We really appreciate your work, and I know you're making the rounds to kind of get the word out, and I'm glad that we could be a part of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Right on. We'll chat soon.
Thanks.
There you have it. Thank you to Alicia for sharing her story, her experience, and her advice. Very much appreciated. We'll link up to her work and the guide in the show notes, of course. I encourage you to dive deeper. I'll leave you with a quote right now from Lady Gaga. She's a big advocate for the LGBTQ plus community. And here's what she said. Do not allow people to dim your shine because they are blinded. Tell them to put on some sunglasses because we were born this way. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.